Untap, upkeep, and welcome back if you've been here before. If you haven't been here before, then welcome to the channel. For all those that have liked, shared, commented, and subscribed, I love each and every one of you, and thank you so much for all of the kindness you've shown me. So for today, we're going to look at a budget Kresh the Blood Braided deck. Now, when I originally got into Commander, this was one of the first decks I ever built on my own creation. But it's since been severely upgraded because over the years, since his initial build, this deck has just become ridiculously bonkers. And it's so ridiculous that I actually put a budget restriction on this. So as a budget Crush the Blood Braided deck, we are everything has to be under $1. If anything is not under $1, it is not in the deck. Now that was at the time of its build almost 2 weeks ago. Well, its last update was 2 weeks ago. And as you can see, we're only $40. But Junda's got a history of being a very, very good what we call mid-range deck. So it has the ability to interact and do things and still maintain a board presence. So when I created this deck years and years ago, we had just got our toes dipped into Commander, and we were very anxious to play it because when I got into Magic, I was just playing 60 card casual tabletop with some family and some friends. And that's all we did, and that's 4 copies of every card in the deck typically, and then you've got uh, only limited resources to do things, and you've got at least 2 other people, sometimes way more. I mean, we did like 6, 7, 8 person battle royales back in those days. Yeah, we were wild. So when Commander came out and became a thing, I introduced everybody to it, and this was one of the decks I built on my own before I even bought my first Commander deck, which was the Kalia of the Vast Commander. So Kresh here is in my favorite color wedge. I love Jund. I think it's a great color wedge. It gives you ramp, tutors, and big dumb dragons. What more could a Buddha dragon ask for? But he says whenever another creature dies, you may put X +1/+1 counters on Crest the Bloodbraid, where X is that creature's power. He doesn't care whose creature is dying. He just cares that a creature died. So as you can imagine, if you don't put yourself on some kind of budget, this just gets so bloody stupid and overpowered. This deck could be so backbreaking if you don't put any kind of limitation. Now, would I say it's like top tier CEDH level kind of thing? Probably not. I mean, I think Crush could get kind of close, but you're still dealing with combat damage, and there's decks that could just go like infinite and combo off way faster than you can even hope to get Crush up off the ground. I have another build where there is no budget, and I might show that in another video, but the non-budget version, pretty nasty. It gets pretty nasty. So some of the creatures that you're going to find in this particular build being that everything has to be under $1, at least at the time of recordings, because card prices do fluctuate here and there. So, like the first one I showed here is the Champion of Lambalt. At the time of this build, it was under $1. Now it's gone up a little bit. It just got a reprint and jumpstart, so maybe it'll come back down. Champion of Lambolt's a really fun card for this deck because creatures with power less than the champion can't block creatures you control. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Just some pretty good little synergies. I mean, then if you can keep Kresh around and somebody goes to kill the Land Bolt after it's got, I don't know, 3 or 4 counters on it, yeah, you get 3 or 4 counters on Kresh. Seems like a win to me. Canker Bloom is a very fun card for this deck. It's a pretty decent body as a 3/2, but you can sack it and you can choose either to destroy an artifact, an enchantment, or an ability called Proliferate. Now, to proliferate, you choose any number of permanents and or players that have counters on them. So if somebody has poison counters, you can proliferate that. If somebody has experience counters, you can proliferate that. And then negative counters, anything that has a counter on it on the battlefield, you should be able to target. And the way proliferating works is you select all your targets, and you add one more of whatever counter was on there before. So you you could be kind of cheeky in a infect kind of game and be like, hey, I see you're at 9. You come my way. I'm gonna nuke this and I'm gonna kill you. Because all it takes is 10 poison counters. It doesn't matter if they got a million health or infinite. 10 poison counters and they're dead. So it's kind of a fun little political thing if you need it to be. And then one of the classics from way back in Shards of Alara, which is where Kresh is from. He's from the plane of Jund off the world Alara. Is the Broodmate Dragon. It's just a wonderful 6/6. It's a 6-mana 4/4 flying dragon, but when it enters the battlefield, it brings its mate with it, a 4/4 red dragon creature token. So for 6 mana, you get 8 power. Not bad. Kind of hard to beat that. Brawn, it just gives everything trample as long as he's in your graveyard and you have a forest. Arbor Elf is just good ramp. And a Cursed Marauder is just a good way to kind of help control the battlefield a little bit. You can sacrifice it or anything else that you need to. And it makes people sack things. So it's a good way to get Kresh to start growing in some power. Of course, Jack Menace, if you put one counter on something, you make double those. So if you were to play a Cursed Marauder after having Corpse Jack Menace and Kresh on the battlefield, every creature that dies is a separate trigger. For Kresh, he sees every single one of them die. No, not necessarily at the same time, but he sees them all dying because it's a separate trigger. And then you, like in this instance, just from our Acoustic Marauder, if we sacked it, Kresh would get 4 1/1 counters on him with Corpse Jack Menace out. That's pretty nasty. But then check something like this out. The Demigoth Titan. Whenever it attacks or blocks, you have to sacrifice a creature. Well, joke's on you. We want our stuff to die because we get Kresh even bigger. So you could block this into something and then sacrifice it and make Kresh huge. You could attack with it and have Kresh going somewhere, sack this and make Kresh huge. It's quite the little powerhouse, especially at 4 mana. It's quite good in my opinion. Demon's Disciple is another everybody sacks something. Disciple of Bolus, we can eat something like the Titan over here, and we could gain X life, draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. So, like the Demigoth, for instance, would be we gain 11 and draw 11 cards. Disciple of Freyles is in the same boat. When it comes into play, we can sacrifice a creature. If we do, we gain X life and draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. Then we have a couple of mana dorks with the Elvish Mystic, Llanowar Elves. Lightning Skelemental. It has trample, it has haste. We don't really give a crack about that. All we care about is when it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards 2 cards. Great, cool. The most important part, at the beginning of the end step, it goes to the graveyard. It yeets itself on out of here, and we make 6 counters on Kresh. So at 3 mana, you can drop this pretty much any time and just turn it sideways. We don't care if it actually connects. We don't care anything. We just want it to die. But it's going to die by its own accord anyway, so we might as well take advantage of it and just turn it sideways at somebody. Krenko, whenever he attacks, he gets counters on them, and then you make goblins equal to the number of. Well, you make goblins equal to his power, so he's just a decent way to keep feeding the engine. A little bit here, a little bit there. This is a new card from Foundations that I actually added in here because whenever it attacks, you may sack a creature. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on this creature, and it has flying. And then on top of that, whenever another non-token creature dies, we get to draw a card. So it's a source of card draw for anything that we have going on here, whether we have to sack things with our edict effects, as they're called, or even lightning skeletal when it decides to yeet itself on out of here, we draw a card. Forgotten Ancient, ridiculous powerhouse in this deck because you can. What makes it so good is whenever a player plays a spell, he gets a 1/1 counter. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you may move any number of those counters from him onto another creature. So you could put them all on Kresh, make Kresh really, really big. If you have the Champion of Lambbolt out, you could put them on the Champion and really do some damage. Because remember, creatures of power less than the Champion can't be blocked. Oh, they can't block. So you could make the Champion really big, or even decently big, and anything that's weaker than that Champion can't block. Filled on because we can make creature tokens of whatever's in our graveyard, and then it has haste, and then it sacrifices itself at the beginning of the next end step. So it's another thing, kind of like Lightning Skelemental. It's gonna die anyway. We don't really care that it's gonna be killed in combat or any kind of effect like that. We don't even care if it gets chump blocked because all we really care about is it makes a token, and then the token's going to kill itself. So if it was a comp of the Titan over here, that's a free 11 counters as far as we're concerned. Playcrafter, just another way to make everybody sack things, make Kresh big. The Sakura Tribe Elder here, or better known as Steve in the world of Commander, he can sacrifice himself to go ramp us and get us some land. So it's only one power base, but hey, every little bit helps, right? Scavenging Ooze over here is just a little bit of graveyard hate. We can gain a little bit of life with the right cards being removed from the graveyard of anybody. So it's just a little bit of graveyard hate to be able to say, I don't think so. We don't like that. The Solemn Simulacrum, or better known as the Sad Robot because of his original printing, was actually done by a winner of a world tournament, which I can show way back in Mirrodin, the original Mirrodin, when we first went there. My lord, they have a whole bunch of the saddest of robots. Well, here's a Time Spiral remastered version of it. So it didn't have this kind of brown border to it. It had the more traditional, but this is why he's traditionally called the Sad Robot. And then any of the other printings, he looks so sad. But pardon me, especially like in the more updated printed version, other than the one that they just printed in the Dustborn set. This one really looks like more of a sad robot just because he actually is looking down on everybody. But here's the original printing. This is what it looks like with the original border. This is from the Commander Anthology. But he is handy to us because when he comes into the battlefield, he goes to find us a land, puts it in the battlefield tapped, and then whenever he dies, we get to draw a card. So we can yeet his butt to the vampire over here whenever she attacks. She'll get bigger. We get to draw a card from his ability and her ability. So we draw 2 cards. Berserker is just a nice classic, always have an outlet to free sacrifice creatures. I believe it's one of the only ones in the whole deck, so kind of limited on that, especially with the budget restriction. Yarglo Multani, I mean, it doesn't have anything special, but it's an 18-6. So, we could do some shenanigans with that. Same thing with Yargle over here. He's just a big 9-3. He doesn't have trample, flying, first strike, no abilities. He's just a big body that we can feed to Kresh. Or we can feed it to the backup dragon, Zeotora, the Incinerator. So at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, Zeotora the Incinerator deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, and I make 3 treasure tokens. So we could eat the Yargle Matani over here for 18 damage to somebody's face or somebody's big scary creature and still get value. Because then 18 counters are going to go on to Kresh if he's out, and then we get 3 treasure tokens because we yeeted somebody. Hard to beat that. Cultivate, Farseek, Rampant Growth, pretty typical green ramp pieces, especially for being under the budget restriction. Harmonize, a nice budgetly reprint. Glad they reprinted it. Please keep reprinting it. It should be down to like a penny. I would not complain. I would buy a whole bunch of them if it got that low. But it's just a nice, simple formatted draw 3 cards. Essence Harvest over here is target player loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So it's a nice way to have Crush really big. Maybe we can't attack. Well, we can still drain everybody, at least one person. Decree of Pain is our major board wipe here at 8 mana. We shouldn't have much problems getting to that, being that we are in Jund. We have lots of ways to ramp and just keep our mana very efficiently because we expect things to die over and over and over. But this says destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated, but more importantly, we get to draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. And then if we need to, we can pay, instead of the full 8 mana, we can pay 5, 3 black, discard this, draw a new card, and we can do that at instant speed, by the way. So if we feel like the elves are fixing to become a problem, or the goblins, we can instant speed throw this away, which could be relevant because whenever you cycle Decree of Pain, all creatures get -2, -2. So it's kind of a mini version of a board wipe. It could be relevant. I mean, Horde of Elves, Goblins, or even Merfolk, you got a way to deal with it. I mean, somebody playing White Weenie Tribal, cool. Hate that for you. Waltz of Rage is a new one from the Dustborn set. Target creature control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature. Until end of turn, whenever a creature you control dies, exile the top card of your library. You may play it until the end of my next turn. So, kind of handy. It's kind of a budget version of Chandra's Ignition. The main difference, Chandra's Ignition will actually hit players too, like it hits your opponents. This does not, but it's our backup board wipe if we get crushed big enough. And then we have some instant speed things that we can do. We can blow up an artifact here and make some bodies equal to the mana cost. Kill an artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Get rid of something and maybe shuffle into something else so that's indestructible and blocking our way, like a Blight Steel Colossus. We can deal with that. Corrupt Conviction, Deadly Dispute, Eviscerator's Insight, Nasty End, and Village Rites, as well as Pyridic Blast, are all instant speed, enable us to draw cards. The Eviscerator's Insight, we can do it twice. It has flashback, so it would be in the graveyard and we pay 4 and a black instead of the mana cost on the top right. We get to do it again. The Pyridic Blast, whenever we sacrifice, it deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target, and we get to draw a card. So this is kind of a cheaty way to give somebody a false sense of hope of, hey, I lived. Actually, no, you don't. Putrefied just kind of deals with an artifact or a creature if we needed to. Nasty End, if we sack just a creature, we draw 2. If the creature's legendary, like Kresh, we get to draw 3 cards. So Terminate allows us to just destroy a creature. It's just a classic Judd piece. Figured why not. One of the other fun cards over here is Soul's Fire. So target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to any target. So what makes this so potent is the fact that it is instant speed. So if you time this right and somebody tries to remove Kresh, you can just nail them in the face for some hopefully horrendous damage. I mean, if Gargoyle Matani has died, I mean, Kresh is already 21-21. So you could nail somebody for 21. Now that won't count towards commander damage. That's still literally 1 point over half their life gone if they're at a full 40. And then you have things like Kazul's Fury you could do to finish the job. Kazul's Fury and Fling both do a very similar thing. Both cards you have to sacrifice a creature, and then they both deal damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. So in the example we just had, Kresh is 21 power. Somebody tries to do something, but we really didn't have much, so maybe we kept up 5 mana open. We could Soul's Fire them in response, and then fling it. That would be 46 points of damage. If they have gained no life throughout this game and can be targeted, they just died on instant speed on the spot. Would be hilarious. We have Cloak with the Bat in here as a little bit of evasion and haste. It gives our equipped creature flying and haste, 2-drop, 2-equip. Then we have our typical mana rocks that we're going to see. Thought Vessel's a little bit more. We might have to drop that and put something else in. That climbed up more than it should. At the time, it was about 99 cents or something like that. It was just barely on the cusp of being budget and for this build. So I think I might have to swap that out for something to keep with the overall theme here. On to a few enchantments that we have in the deck. We have Death's Presence. Whenever a creature you control dies, put X1 counters on target creature you control, where X is that creature's power that died. So this only affects us. It's a one-sided version of Kresh, but we can put the counters on anything we want to, so it's not that bad. Death Ritual at the beginning of each end step. If a creature died this turn, you may draw a card. Each end step. So if you have a way, like if you have Visitors here and you have some goblins out, you can just sack one at a time on everybody's turn and draw a card for every single one of them that dies on somebody else's turn. Groups Uprising, it's more or less in here because we do have some big beaters, so we could draw some cards off of it, but mainly it gives our creatures trample, so it's a way to make Kresh be able to punch through. Moldvine Reclamation is another one that synergizes well with this build. Whenever a creature you control dies, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So it doesn't, like the Death Reap Ritual, it doesn't limit on it not being a token. So we have the ability to sacrifice tokens if we needed to, like the ones that Feldon makes. When they die, both of these will trigger. So we get to draw some cards. Rite of the Raging Storm is probably one of the most, if not the most critical card in this entire build. So, creatures named Lightning Rager cannot attack you or planeswalkers you control. Not really that relevant to us. We don't really give two doo-doos about that. What we care about is this one. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player creates a 5/1 red elemental creature token named Lightning Rager. It has trample, haste, and at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice this creature. So everybody gets one on the beginning of their turn, and they can attack with it, they cannot. It doesn't matter. We don't care, because we're still going to get the trigger unless they bounce or exile the token. When it dies, we get 5 1/1 counters on our boy Kresh. And if anything like Moldavine Reclamation or Death Ritual is out, we're going to draw cards. So it is probably one of the most, oh yes, my deck is cooking cards in the whole deck. And then we have things like Riveteer's Ascendancy. So whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may return target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And we can only do it once each turn. So this is probably not that great overall in the build, but it has some uses, I think. And then we have a pretty good amount of land. We're running 35 lands in the actual mana base. 2 of them are what we call NDFCs, or they are dual mold spells, which would be Freyalise and Kazul's Fury. They can actually be played as lands if we actually need mana that bad, which I hope we don't. We shouldn't. So we have Bonder's Enclave over here to allow us to draw cards if we control a creature with power 4 or greater. Shouldn't be that difficult to get done. We have some multicolor lands, some check lands. Kessig Wolf Run allows us to give Kresh Trample, even if we just pay a red and a green. He would, because the way to use the ability is X red green. So target creature gets +X/+0 and gains trample time a turn. We don't really care necessarily about him getting more power unless it's really close to getting to 21 commander damage, one-shotting somebody. What we care about is the fact he gives him trample. So if they did try to chump block with a little 1/1 elf thinking they were safe, we could change that math and punch them. Field of Ruin, because like I've been saying in my videos, you always want at least a piece to deal with some kind of land that is just going to be a pain in your butt, such as the Tabernacle of Pendravel, which I've shown before in a previous video. If you don't know what it does, look it up or check out my videos and find out which video it was. Scrag, the Rage Pits, is kind of like a backup version of Kessig Wolf Run. It too has gone up a little bit. I think it's still fine. I'm not really going to be too hard about it being a quarter above $1. But if I want to be a stickler, yeah, I could swap this out for something. But the main reason it would be in here is red, green, tap it. Target creature gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. So it's a nice way to give Kresh trample and smash. We have all 3 of our temples to be able to scry and kind of make sure we can continue to get what we want to get. So we don't have anything in the considering board. As you can see, our mana curve is nice and low overall. We have several 2 and 3 drops, some 4, some 5, some 6. And the bigger ones, of course, are just to be fed to Kresh anyway. Our mana split is not too bad. It's almost a perfect 3, really. Aside from some of the artifacts. And this is kind of what a sample hand would look like. And we could be off to the races with this one. We could do some damage. We'll actually play through this real quick just to kind of see. So, turn 1, elf. Turn 2, this is working great. Yeah, we want that. And play that. Turn 3, 1, 2, 3. Play that. Play that. Turn 4. Play that. Play that. And I think we actually would play that. So then turn 5. It would be a tap land. Kreshy Boy comes out to play. And we could pass. So we get a Mind Stone. We get this guy. When he enters the battlefield, each player sacks a creature or a planeswalker. We can yeet him to the grave, and we get 1, 2, 3. Kresh now is 6/6 trampling beat stick. Turn him sideways. Not great. Get another land. We are now empty-handed. We could actually try and draw something here. Sack that. Oh, biscuits. Pass. Mind stone. We could eat that to draw something. Well, we were cooking for a minute. We need another way to draw some cards here. We could always canker bloom something if we wanted to. Yeah, we kind of petered out here, but that's okay. We were doing pretty hot for a minute. Let's see what another sample hand would look like. We actually don't go anywhere with this because the Arbor Elf cannot untap our temple. So I think we would ship that one back. Again, Arbor Elf doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't do anything. So we would go down to 6. I like this hand a little bit better. I think. What would you put back? I think we put that to the bottom. So then we would take our turn. We would draw. Mantower Pass. Hey, Forest. Signet. Wolf Run. I think we do it. I think we sad robot. Let's get Swamp. Let's shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Pass. So turn 3 we looked pretty good. So turn 4 we don't have another land drop, but we can play that and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that really how we want it? Yeah. Play our demigod. Turn 5. Slam Kresh down. Turn this sideways. Yeet this. Kresh gets bigger. We draw a card. We pass the turn. Draw another land. So maybe we actually do Uprising. So that'd be what? 1, 2, I don't know, 3. We're gonna draw a card because we definitely could draw something power 4 or bigger. And then we could, well, if we tapped different, yeah, we could do that. We can tap differently. Oh, well, I guess it don't really matter. Anyway, could play this, draw this. Could actually just sit here and chill for a minute. Play that. Play that. Turn that sideways. Yeet that to the grave. Draw a card from Undying. This thing is going to get 9 counters. Making Kresh really big. We have that. We have that. We could do that. And probably our last turn going through here. We could do this. Get this back. This will die. Draw a card. I mean, we've got a number of things we could do here. So, as you can see, the deck is probably not the most backbreaking thing at being just $1, but it has a lot of fun synergies. We stumble a little bit because we are very budget, very budget. But I think you have a good shot of hanging at most pods just because we have got a good amount of synergy. We got a good number of creatures. We have good numbers all the way across the board. So I think you wouldn't just be absolutely destroyed and die in a ball of fire kind of thing, but you're probably not burning up the battlefield yourself either. you're going to be somewhere in the middle, which is kind of funny, given that Judd is the typical go-to mid-range kind of build. So I think that'll do it for today's episode, because Kresh is ready for battle, and he's ready to take you on, whether it be in his way or by his side. You make a choice, because Kresh is coming. With all that said, don't forget, rub your belly for mana, and may all of your games be filled with luck. Like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications.